Aloha, welcome to Jordan's Journal. I'm Representative Joe Jordan, and today I have my guest, Bruce Tsuchida. Sorry, Bruce.
That's fine.
From Townscape. So, could you tell me what you do for Townscape and what does Townscape do?
Thanks, Joe. Townscape is a small local planning company, and we do what's called environmental and community planning. Over the years, we've done quite a few projects in Waianae, including for the whole Waianae Moku several years ago, we did the watershed management plan for bottled water supply.
Oh. So you're familiar with our mountain ranges and the Waianae community when it comes to planning, right?
Yes, because of past work there, we know something about the community and the landscape and the resources.
Okay. So here today we're going to be talking about flooding, mostly in the Makaha area.
Right.
You've been awarded a contract and you're going to be doing some work out in Makaha regarding the flood study. Stepping back just a little bit, I obviously have been in the Waianae community for quite a while, and through the neighborhood board process in the last few years, we've had some serious flooding in Makaha during large, heavy rainstorms. And sometimes just in the occasional, hard downpour for like 30 minutes. And over the years, people, would complain or ask, how can we get this resolved? I think once I stepped into this office, we decided to introduce a measure. And in 2012, we passed a measure, which was called the Makaha Flood Study. And it was put out, and your company was awarded that bid. And that's where we're here today to talk about the project that you're looking at. So, the Makaha Flood Study, could you give a little bit of background on what we're going to be looking at and some possible recommendations or goals out of this?
Sure. This flood study will be about a 20-month undertaking.
Okay.
And basically what we're doing is in both talking with folks in Makaha, getting information from people who live there and have experienced these flood problems, but also looking at maps and data. For example, the federal U.S. Geological Survey has flood data and stream data for Makaha Stream. So we're looking at all those things. We'll be doing some fairly detailed what's called flood modeling. This is computer-based calculation of flood flows for major storms, and through all of those means trying to understand what are the flood problems, where is the flooding taking place, what's the impact on people's homes and businesses, and then the next step will be to try to figure out, well, what do we do about the flooding? How do we mitigate or decrease the flooding and help the situation? So coming out toward the end of the study will be a report that documents all that and has some pretty specific projects to solve some of the flooding together with cost estimates.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about a 20-month.
Right.
So we've already started the project
Right.
last June, you said. So we're like 7-8 months into this project.
That's correct.
And you've already done some walking and talking and speaking with different groups or individuals and looking at some of the data that we've had from the past. So I know we've discussed about having a public meeting. So that's one of the other components of all this, right? So you're at what point in I guess, the study?
We've done most of the kind of fact-finding and mapping and analysis, and we have some very preliminary ideas about what to do about the flooding. So before we go any further, we wanted to go out to the community, share the information that we have, share these very preliminary ideas, and ask people, well, did we get it right, or are there things we missed, or there are other ideas that you folks have? And we'll gather that information and then begin to do more detailed project planning for to try to help with the flood situation.
Yeah. So in essence, this is like another gathering component for the study.
Sure.
So that's what we're trying to look for. We're trying to look for other individuals that we might not have seen, or, you know, people who might have knowledge of the area that we don't have contact with. So, you know, this is one way, being on Olelo. The other way is going to be having this town hall meeting, which is going to be Tuesday, March 25th,
Right.
at the Waianae District Park.
Mm.
Normally when I hold my meetings, and you're going to be joining us, we have a little bit of food, break bread a little bit from about 6:30, and then at 7 we're going to start the meeting, and we're going to go for about an hour and a half, and you're going to be discussing some of the topics that you've already done all the background research.
right.
So, and hopefully we can get some other people to attend, but if they can't attend the meeting, is there other ways for them to contact you?
Sure.
Okay.
A good way would be to they can contact me via email.
Okay.
And my email address is bruce@townscapeinc.com.
Okay.
So they can email if they have ideas or information. And even after this community meeting, if people want to show us things on the ground or in the streams, we'd be happy to come out and take a look with people.
And do the walking.
Sure.
or view the areas.
Right.
Now, with, you know, contacting you via email, I mean, I'm sure you answer all those things, and you'll be more than willing to hear what their thoughts are. They can discuss it through there, but you also have like a little website that they can
Yeah.
go and see some of the information now.
Yeah,
That's very, very preliminary right now, right? And that would be at your website, which would be at.
The website is www.townscapeinc.com.
Okay.
And we have several different projects on the website, including some basic photographs and information about this Makaha Flood Study.
Yeah, so I mean, if somebody wants a little bit more information before the meeting, they can also go look at that, right? And again, your whole staff is open to hearing any more information that people might have, or, and I'm always about how can we tap everything we
Sure.
can tap to get the best amount going forward. So I do know that you've already done some work. You want to talk a little bit about Makaha Valley without getting into too much depth, and because
Okay.
we're still formulating
Right.
all this information, right? So could you kind of talk a little bit about what we've done so far?
Maybe we can show the first map from our website. Can we show that?
Okay,
That's
now it'll
good.
be coming up online. Here we go.
Okay, this is a map of the valley, Makaha Valley.
Okay.
It's close to 6,000 acres, so it's a pretty big valley. The two different colors on the map show the two main stream watersheds. So a watershed, of course, is all the water that flows into a particular stream. On the left, the large area colored green is Makaha Stream watershed, and that's over 4,000 acres in area.
Wow.
And then on the right is the smaller watershed. Actually, that's Kamaile Unu watershed, but the stream actually is called Eku. So
Eku.
it's Eku Stream
Okay.
watershed. And so those are the two main streams.
The two main streams in
Yeah.
the valley,
Right.
comprising of almost 6,000 acres.
That's
It's a
right.
large place. So the concentration is on those two major streams that flow down either side of the valley, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And then behind me here, can we show this map?
Okay. There we go.
Can we get down here a little bit? That would be good.
So that would be
This is a preliminary flood map
okay.
that shows the lower part of those two watersheds. The top of the valley is way up here.
Okay.
So, and if people can see, the black outline here is the calculated limits of what's called the 100-year flood.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that the flood occurs only once in 100 years. More accurately, it's called the 1% probability flood.
Okay.
That means in any given year, there's a 1% chance that that flood will happen. So in a really bad weather situation, technically you could have a 100-year flood 2 years in a row.
Wow.
But there's a relatively small chance in any given year. So the black lines are the flood limits for the 100-year flood. Can we see that again for a minute? So this is Eku Stream, and probably very difficult to see on screen, but there's a lot of houses
Yeah, there's a lot of houses
within
that,
this floodplain,
the
because
black lines.
Eku Stream up here is very steep, and then as it nears the coast, the land flattens out basically.
Yep.
So all that water just flows out in a pretty broad sheet and floods a lot of neighborhoods here. Up here is the same 100-year flood.
Okay, if you go on the other
lines.
side of the valley, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let me pick that up. This is the 100-year flood, the black lines for Makaha
to the
Stream.
Makaha side.
But most of that broad flood area is across undeveloped land, so there's much less impact on homes. However, when that flood comes out to the coast, it floods Farrington Highway.
Yeah,
And a big flood takes out a lot of sand on Makaha Beach.
yeah.
So these are major problems.
So, I mean, these are just a few of the things that you've identified already.
Right.
That is probably going to be this discussion at this meeting, but we all know there's probably a lot more.
Yeah, we had some photographs on our website. Maybe we could take a look at a couple of those, of some of the flood conditions. This is walking up on the lower slopes of the mountains there, but we're walking along here the drainage channel that goes back behind Mauna Olu Estates.
Oh,
So those homes are built right near the cliff, and there's a ditch and an earthen berm behind the homes to catch the storm runoff before it can go into homes and yards. But that ditch needs some work. This is the ditch behind the Makaha Valley Towers, and again, that's uphill from the towers to catch the rainwater coming down from the mountain. But the next slide, we can see there was some gunite, concrete-like material sprayed on that ditch some years ago, but as you can see in this
yeah,
photograph, it's failing, eroding. So that ditch and other features in the valley need work.
yeah. So, I mean, even in looking at the research that we have so far is some mitigation that has been done in the past or put in for projects that were built in the valley now are starting to, I guess, decay a little bit. Because I distinctly remember the Makaha Valley Towers one. I think it was by the mid-90s.
Right.
Because everybody knows that behind Makaha Valley Towers, when it rains, you have these beautiful waterfalls.
Beautiful, but
Beautiful,
dangerous.
yeah. And I guess we had maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure, a 50-year or 60-year rainstorm, and two of those beautiful waterfalls came together into one. And if people remember, they came right down in between the towers, flooded their pool,
Right.
and they had, 30 to 40 feet of mud in their parking lot.
And boulders.
And boulders the size of cars.
I've
and
seen some of those photographs.
If you've seen some of those photos, it was just mind-boggling. And one of the things that they did was put this concrete channel behind this property after some discussion with property owners and the tower's owners. But as we can see over time, if maintenance isn't handled on these particular projects, we start getting channeled. And this is, we're not going to say one is the blame or not the blame, but
Sure.
we're trying to look at all. I mean, we're trying to look at the whole valley and see the small and the large things, and how do we move forward without it all ending up on Farrington Highway and having, 4 feet of water at, and most people understand where Cornets, or the old Cornets, which is now the Makaha Marketplace, you'll have almost 4 feet of water there, and cars can't bypass. So, I mean, just my, short 40 years of being there, I can distinctly remember a huge rainstorm in the 80s, another large rainstorm in the 90s, and, and then in the ending of the 2000s, we had a huge rainstorm in 2008, 2008, and 2010. And I guess with frequency of, changes in natural occurrences of rainstorms or huge tropical storms, we're seeing more occurrence of this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part of the concern here is that with climate change, at least what many of the experts are predicting, and I have no reason to doubt them, is we are going to get more major storms and more bigger major storms.
Yeah.
So we may get today's 100-year storm in the future could be much larger, and that means more flooding. On top of which, as I think most people understand, if you build roads and homes and driveways and roofs, hard surfaces in any valley, including Makaha Valley, you're going to get more runoff and you're going to get more flooding in a big storm. So there's a lot of undeveloped land still in Makaha.
Yeah.
And as that land becomes developed, there will probably be even worse flooding problems because there is no overall flood control system in the valley. If it's a new town project that's being built in other areas like in Eva district now, there's a pretty well designed overall drainage system so that people don't get flooded out.
Yeah.
But that's never been built in places like Makaha. So there's real cause for concern going forward.
There is, and we just say, and this could be because it's a very old community. The growth over, probably like from the 40s to 1940 all the way through today, and then the changes in the different types of project, creating larger swaths of, smooth property, meaning roads or roofs that it'll move faster. I mean, I can remember visiting the valley after the 2010, and they were talking about that rainstorm came in like the very early morning hours, like 3-4 o'clock in the morning when it was pitch dark, and people were hearing boulders rolling down the valley and just fearful, where is this rushing water coming from? And that's the incident that the golf course lost one of their holes. It became a pond. So these are the kind of occurrences that people are like, what are we going to do? And as we get down to the bottom of the valley, like you were talking about Echo Stream side, when you start looking at that, can be almost half a mile stretch or 3/4 of a mile stretches, and we have nothing but homes for those first acre and a half closest to Farrington Highway. And it's just not healthy, and we don't have any some people will call canals. So if you go like into Pearl City or maybe even the new Kapolei area, you'll see canals that channel stuff off. Even in Miley, in Waianae and Miley, they have canals. They created a canal system back in the 60s. I'm not saying that's what we need to do here, because we need to know what we have and what some of the potential solutions may be going forward. But I do know one of the bigger challenges is this is not really a lot of public land in Makaha Valley. Board of Water Supply may own the mountains. And the state, DLNR, may have the tip of the mountains, but as far as, up to that base of the mountain going all the way to the ocean.
Along the streams is all privately owned.
Pretty much all privately owned. So this is something that, we all need to come together and say, well, what is the solutions best for all? And
that's right. For Eku Stream, for example, that's all, the lower part of the stream basically flows through people's residential lots. There's no public land. So some kind of channel would probably be a big help. But then the question is, how do we do that through people's backyards? So that's a tough one.
Yeah, and those are conversations. I guess that's why. I mean, this just doesn't happen in 6 months. I mean, you're gonna have to come up with some good data and some good possible solutions, and then how do we move from there? Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a work in progress probably for quite a while.
For years.
For years. That's what I see, for years. And if people really want to resolve, I mean, we can do small projects down on Farrington Highway and create some, channeling of water off the roadway and into little ditches, but that still doesn't work when you've got 4 feet of
the big storm is a really big storm. Just for example, the preliminary flood calculations that our engineers have run. Let me just share some numbers with you. They've run numbers for the 100-year flood.
Mm-hmm.
For Eku Stream, they calculate this is about 5,200 cubic feet per second flow.
Wow.
And for Makaha Stream, it's 11,400 cubic feet per second. Now, for most folks probably don't quite understand what the cubic feet per second might mean, but for example, I just ran this number this morning. Basically what it means is a whole house full of water that's going to pass any point in the stream, pass by any point, every second.
Wow.
So if you're standing next to Makaha Stream, watching that flood water, it'd be the equivalent of about a 1,400 square foot house flashing by you, just water,
In a second.
every second.
Whoa.
So that's plenty water, right?
Wow.
And, and has a lot of destructive force too. So
Oh yeah, that can.
anything in its way is
Yeah.
going to get hit pretty hard.
I mean, like we said, I mean that can move boulders the size of a small vehicle.
Sure.
Yeah. Or, I mean, debris. I mean, it erodes dirt in a heartbeat. I mean, it yeah. I saw what Makaha Beach looked like after the 2010 rainstorm, and obviously when you have a heavy rainstorm after a long period of time, pretty much everything's going to come down from the valley. And we had a fire probably about 2 years before that, and the debris on Makaha Surfing Beach was almost 4 feet deep by about 6 feet wide, the whole beach, and everything was in there.
Yeah.
But it was just mind-boggling to go. I mean, that was just on the beach. Could you imagine what was in the water? Because it pushed it back up on the beach, and you're just rushing water can create a lot of damage. And if properties are so close to these flood areas, and especially with the changes in the new flood maps, a lot of people don't understand that. I know there's been a lot of information put out there, but people still don't know. And I think that's what is really important for me. It's how do people begin to understand that you may be in a flood zone, or you may be very close to a flood zone, or just because that stream always looks dry or very trickling of a water, if we have a great rainstorm up in that valley, you're going to have several feet of water.
And I think as some folks understand, if you are in a designated flood zone, and these are mapped on the federal flood maps, then you got to have flood insurance to get a mortgage loan.
Yes.
If you own your house outright, you don't need that insurance, although you still might want it.
Yeah.
But if you're buying a house for the first time and you need that mortgage loan, you don't get the loan without the flood insurance, and the flood insurance is getting real expensive.
It is. It's getting very expensive because, I mean, this isn't in only Makaha. I mean, across the United States, I mean, we've heard these major storms, and that is due to different climate changes that we're having different storm reactions now than we've ever had, even our most recent life history. So
in that regard, as far as insurance goes, if some of the flood mitigation projects that we're thinking about can be put in the ground, then that flood zone, especially Eku Stream, could shrink.
Ah.
So if it shrinks, that means some of the homes that are now in the flood zone would be outside of the flood zone and
Therefore
would not need that flood insurance. So
Oh.
that's a potential big plus for some folks. Whether we could solve it for all folks within that Eku Stream area, I don't know. We're going to look at that. We're going to do as much as we can, but
Oh, maybe that's how we can get some participation to the meeting.
yeah, hope so.
Yeah, hope so. So again, you're going to be joining us at that meeting.
Yes.
You're going to be doing most of the talking at the meeting. That will be again Tuesday, March the 25th. We're going to start a little bit of food at 6:30, and then the meeting will start at 7. That gives people time to get there, get settled. The meeting will go to about 8:30, and we're going to have it at Waianae District Park. So I look forward to seeing you on the 25th and having some robust discussion, and hopefully we can find some more people with more information about the valley so we can have this great report come out and see if we can make some great changes in Makaha.
Good.
Thank you very much,
Looking forward to
Bruce.
it.
I appreciate this.
Thank you, Joe.
Aloha. Thank you for joining us at Jordan's Journal, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the meeting on March the 25th at 6:30 in Waianae District Park. Aloha.